Jackpot. So we started discussing the music actually very, very early on. I spent perhaps 6 or 9 months collecting references. And then I got in contact with Patrick Jarlstam, and we went through the music together, and we started to create a plan. And Patrick is very skilled at making something authentic. He is a very experienced jazz player, and we're very happy with how the music turned out. It's very authentic to the 50s, or at least as close as we could get it.
Daniel had a very strong idea of what he wanted in the game and had made playlists of every scenario. And he's a type of person who's given a lot of thought of what he wanted. And from the start of those playlists, we started discussing what could work and what versions we could make of songs. But because of, this is something we found out throughout the working process, there's not many great sampled jazz instruments that we could use. We couldn't make a demo we felt in this style that sounded true to the original, which has not been our experience when we're working with more orchestral soundtracks. So we actually wrote a song, which you instigated, and then we decided to go into the studio to record it to show how it would sound. And that's the song that became Peanut Smoothie Buyer. And it's in the game. It's the first song in the game when you start playing, not the intro credit, but yeah, it's the first song in the game. And it's cool because it's a song that works for so many different scenarios. It wasn't made for one in particular, but it works all over the game, and so it features a lot in the first act.
So a little bit about my character, Winston Green. When I first saw the script and got to read through this character's journey, I was fascinated with the similarities between the two of us and also the differences. It's always fun to portray a character who you are like, but also completely unlike. So I was excited to be able to jump into a character like Winston who I could share the things that I knew and share the emotions that I have in common, and then also take a dive into some things that I could never possibly imagine. And it was so much fun to portray this character.
We started discussing the music right from the beginning. We wanted the music to create this atmosphere of 1950s style. The first piece I've worked on was in 2023, was Winston's apartment. I finished the first draft within 3 days, and that was exactly when we started working on the Winston's apartment scene as well.
I got involved with the project by actually having one of the casting directors actually reach out to me. They've heard some of my work online, reached out to one of my channels where I get different work, and she said, "Hey, I think you'd be great for this role. Why don't you audition?" Before just reading the lines, I had a chance to learn a little bit more about the character Norman. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know people like Norman. I have family members like Norman. I have elements like Norman. And so that's what really helped me try to get the performance out. And that was what ultimately helped me win the role. Norman Johnson is a character, really, for me, he's like a person. He's that nice person who has seen a lot, who's gone through a lot, but hasn't let him beat him down. Hasn't let him kind of look at the world in a dark way. He still is able to crack jokes. He's still able to be helpful, but ultimately he just wants to be somebody who can be dependable and help provide for his family and his community. And I know a lot of people like that, and I try to exhibit traits like that. So this was a character that was close to my heart.
Harold is, I think, a classic example of a truly good guy in a truly bad situation. He is this guy who is dedicated to doing good things for his company, for his family, for his community, for his clients, and comes up against ever more insurmountable issues that make it tough for him to make good on his commitment to be a good and helpful guy building a good and helpful company. He, over time, has to deal with these obstacles progressively and is dealing simultaneously with a son who is maybe a bit of a prickly character, not necessarily easy to work with, even though he's the next most important principal in the company. It's a little unclear to me how much that is reflective of their personal life and how much is just on the job, but certainly on the job, Donovan is a bit of a chore. And then he discovers Winston, who becomes to a degree, something of a new substitute son for him. He sees in him someone who is hardworking and dedicated and all the things that Harold stands for, and that becomes a formative relationship for him.
So about Johnny Russell. Johnny Russell is a fun character because he's so dedicated to this job, to this life, and working on that. And he's almost neurotic about it. And that's allowed him to hyper focus on it and develop all these little ways of doing this and that and this and that. He's probably dove into the processes of how this company works more than anybody else. And he's figured out all of the tricks and ways to get this done to a level that nobody else cares about. So he's kind of a hyper fixated character. And yet he's got a little depth. He does have a soul to him. He really enjoys escaping from that as well, the outdoors.
I feel like because the game is so time period heavy, but it's also so comical and covers like a lot of different sort of settings. For the time period, jazz was a really good starting point. And then from jazz language, we were able to blend into different genres. And like from blues language, we could go into different places. So through the blues, we can lock into surf rock and we can go into like country and a lot of different genres, which kind of aids the comical feel of the entire game and the character of the entire game.
Exactly. And I feel that even though we're in the 1950s, it's sort of a time bubble that the music exists in, that we go slightly earlier, we go 40s, we go slightly later, anachronistically the 60s and the surf music and the blues rock of that era, but also smack dab in the middle with a lot of 1950s music.
Yeah.
And we also tried to be true with the cinematic music, the cutscene music around it, because you wrote period appropriate cinematic music. How was that, Carla?
Yeah, totally. It's great. I mean, cinematic music from the 50s is very much a blend of classical and jazz music. So we're covering a lot of ground, connecting a lot of different settings through that. Yeah, I listened to a lot of Bernard Herrmann to try to get that right sound, and Henry Mancini to get that sort of 50s cinematic feel.
Yeah, a little bit about our man. He is a very mysterious character, comes in at a very interesting point in the game. He has a very, let's say, complicated past with the main character, Winston. Although there's a lot of tension, there's clearly a relationship that has been forged over a few years. Armand, my character, used to work for the AEC and is now in this kind of interaction that he has with Winston, revealing a lot of secrets that maybe the audience and the players didn't know. He's an interesting guy with interesting motives as well.
Hi, my name is Malin Håkansson and I'm the lead sound designer of Delivered All Costs, and I also took care of the casting. So when it comes to the destruction sounds, there was a lot of sounds. So we did 4 categories. We did metal, wood, glass, and brick debris. And each category had about 20 to 30 different sounds. And the challenge was to find, for example, metal, 20, 30 different metal sounds, but give them enough personality to feel that they were creating something new every time you ran into a house. But it also had to not have too much personality so it would stick out in the production. So it was trial and error in the beginning, and we did that with all the different sound categories just to make it fun running into things and making things feel new. And I think the implementation also was a bit of a challenge, or?
It was. I think we started quite big with all of these categories of sound, and we noticed that it easily became a cacophony of sound when everything was in. So we tried bit by bit reducing it to smaller levels, because you can run into so many objects in this world, and we don't want the ears of the players to be fatigued by just hearing crashes and sounds the whole time. So reducing the levels and reducing the amount of sounds really helped. But then we also needed to sound design a couple of single objects here and there to really stand out. Do you have any favorites of those sounds that you designed?
My favorite sounds was definitely those sounds that you could really find an essence to the object, a personality. For example, the surfboard or the popcorn machine store. And you can find those little characteristic sounds. But there was also a lot of objects that was challenged because they looked pretty much the same. So it was a challenge after a while when you've done 1,000 different metal sounds to find that little tweak to each sound to make them stand out from each other.
Hi, my name is Pablo Cerribes, and I am the technical sound designer for Delivered All Costs. So the biggest challenge for doing the sound effects for Deliver at All Costs, I was in charge of doing like the sounds for the missions. Like we have 19 or something missions. Is that each mission is unique and has unique sound effects. So you can't really reuse pre-existing sound files or pre-existing systems. I had to like learn each mission, how each mission worked, and then implement the sounds for that. So I think that was one of the greatest challenges.
Deliver at All Cost is a game that puts you in the shoes of this very unlikely everyday man who is put upon and frustrated with all the troubles that every one of us has experienced in their everyday life. But you have this perfect opportunity to let loose and explore this world and destroy it if you should want to. You will be constantly challenged, and hopefully you will also constantly be given reasons to laugh.